Testing audio, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Check, check.
The light is, it's on. The green light is on. It's not going off.
Testing, 1, 2.
tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Va'ani berov chastecha avovetecha eshtachaveh el heichal kodshecha be'iratecha. 104. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Adonai ahavti me'on beitecha, umkol mishkan kevodecha. Va'ani ashtachaveh ve'echra'a evrecha lifnei Adonai osi. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chasdecha aneni be'emet yish'echa. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm glad everyone has joined us for Shabbat, those who are here, those who are here, and I'm glad everyone has come together. I want to welcome all of you to our Shabbat morning service. Also our Bima guest, who is Steve Kantrowitz this morning. He's always Steve Kantrowitz. He's not always the Bima guest. But anyway, we want to welcome you, and we'll hear from Steve a little later. And of course, I did what I usually do. Of late, I left my phone in my study, so we'll figure that out as we get closer. So we'll have to switch devices. But anyway, let's jump into continuing our Shabbat morning service. At the top, at the bottom of page 102, the bottom of page 102. Eternal God, we thank you for the gift of hope, our strength in times of trouble. Beyond the injustice of our time, its cruelty and its wars, we look forward to a world at peace when men and women deal kindly with each other and no one is afraid. Every bad deed delays its coming. Every good one brings it nearer. May our lives be your witness so that future generations bless us. May the time come, as the prophet taught, when the sun of righteousness will rise with healing on its wings. Help us to pray for it, to wait for it, to work for it, and to be worthy of it. We praise you, O God, the hope of Israel. Page 103. Each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of gratitude and joy. They are overflowing with the happiness of love and the joy of life. They are eager to confront the day, to make the world more fair. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune, and we rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily upon them, and they have tasted despair. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken those whom they cherished. May our presence and sympathy bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. They have sought answers in vain. Ideals are mocked and betrayed. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore their hope and give them courage to believe that not all is emptiness. Some spirits hunger. They long for friendship. They crave understanding. They yearn for warmth. May we, in our common need and striving, gain strength from one another as we share our joys, lighten each other's burdens, and pray for the welfare of our community. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe. You hallow us with the gift of Torah and command us to immerse ourselves in its words. Eternal our God, make the words of your Torah sweet to us and to the house of Israel, your people, that we and our children may be lovers of your name and students of your Torah. We praise you, O God, teacher of Torah, to your people, Israel. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, ve'elu hen. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, ve'elu hen. Kibud avaim, ugmilut chasadim, v'hashkamat beit hamidrash, shacharit ve'arvit. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, ve'elu hen, ve'hachnasat orchim, uvikur cholim, ve'hachnasat kala, ulevayad hamet, ve'iyun tfilah, ve'iyun tfilah, v'hava'at shalom, bein adam lachavero, v'talmud Torah keneged kulam, 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 v'talmud Torah keneged kulam. Page 106. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech v'vina, lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kfufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten laya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai. Eternal One, our God and God of all ages, school us in your Torah and bind us to your mitzvot. Help us to keep far from sin, to master temptation, and to avoid falling under its spell. May our darker passions not rule us, nor evil companions lead us astray. Strengthen in us the voice of conscience, prompt us to deeds of goodness, and bend our every impulse to your service, so that this day and always we may know your love and the goodwill of all who behold us. We praise you, O God. You bestow love and kindness on your people, Israel. Hitgadal v'hitgadash shemei rabba, b'yalma divrachute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala, ba'agala, uv'izman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach, le'olam ul'almei almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha, barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimeru. Amen. In body, mind, or spirit, please rise as you are able. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha birachamim, uvtivo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma'rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'a ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'ore or she'asita yefa'arucha Selah. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer ha'me'orot. Page 110. Ahava rabavtanu Adonai Eloheinu, chem lagedola v'tera chamalta aleinu. Avinu malkeinu, ba'avor avotenu, shebatchu v'cha, Avinu malkeinu. V'tilamdem chukei chayim, ken techonenu utlamdenu, Avinu ha'av harachaman, hamrachem rachem aleinu. V'tein belibenu lehavin ulhaskil lishmoa, lilmodu lilamed, lishmor velasot, ulkayem et kol divrei Talmud Torah techa b'yahava. V'ha'er enenu b'toratecha, v'dabek b'neinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'yir'ah et shemecha ve'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed ve'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha hagadol v'hanora b'tachnu nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha ki el po'el yeshuot ata uvanu v'charta v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet v'hodot lecha u'liachedcha ba'ahava baruch ata Adonai habocher ba'amo Yisrael ba'ahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim v'hiot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Page 112. Eternal truth it is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May all the world rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares. Let them beat their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation. Let them study war no more. You shall not hate another in your heart. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Let the stranger in your midst be to you as the native, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So let from the house of bondage we went forth to freedom. So let all be free to sing with joy. Lai 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 ברוך הבא אלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שמחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לי 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 צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדחינו מכה יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Body, mind, or spirit, please rise for the tefillah, page 114. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekone Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, Le'ma'an Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia, mechalkel chaim ve'chesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, umkayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech meimit, umchayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Page 116. Mekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad nevi'echa, V'kara ze'el ze ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melo chol ha'aretz, Kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol ha'aretz, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Yoshienu vehu yashmienu berachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem Yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohayich Tzion Hedor Vador. Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagid God Lecha U'netzach netzachim kedushatcha nakdish V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. To all generations we will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God. Amen. Please be seated. Those who keep the Sabbath and call it a delight shall rejoice in your deliverance. All who hallow the seventh day shall be gladdened by your goodness. This day is Israel's festival of the Spirit, sanctified and blessed by you, the most precious of days, a symbol of the joy of creation. Our God, God of our fathers and our mothers, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and let your Torah be our way of life. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal God, let your holy Sabbath remain our heritage, that all Israel, hallowing your name, may find rest and peace. We praise you, O God, for the Sabbath and its holiness. Page 120. We give thanks for the freedom that is ours, and we pray for those in other lands who are persecuted and oppressed. Help them to bear their burdens and keep alive in them the hope of freedom and the hope of deliverance. Uphold also the hands of our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel. Cause a new light to shine upon Zion and upon us all, that the time may come when your Torah will go forth from the house of Israel, your word from the tents of Jacob. We praise you, our God, whose presence gives life to our people Israel. Modim anachnu lach she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu le'olam va'ed. We thank you, God, for all of the blessings in our lives, and we take a moment now to consider our blessings and to share our blessings perhaps with the congregation. So if you are feeling particularly blessed this morning and you have something you'd like to share, please feel free to share it. I feel blessed that there are constantly more and more variations of Oreo cookies, quite frankly. And more of them in each cookie. Yeah, you need to come and visit us in person to discover some of those on your own. We like to have a variety here. So, and then. Excellent. Marking around a tour online of the Machane Yehuda market, one of the main marketplaces in Jerusalem, and there was a little bit on marzipan, the bakery at the end of the corner that is one of my favorite places in the world, and Mark said that it brought back for them memories of our trips to Israel, their experiences in Israel, and so that sounds. Marzipan is not a bad thing to have and eat, and not a bad place to visit either, that's for sure. So for all the blessings we've heard out loud, perhaps more blessings that may be in the chat that you may have in your own hearts and minds, we share this prayer of thanksgiving together on the top of page 121. We gratefully acknowledge that you are our God and the God of our people, the God of all generations. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank you and sing your praises for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. You are goodness. Your mercies never end. You are compassion. Your love will never fail. You have always been our hope. Praised be the eternal God, to whom our thanks are due. Page 122. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha, barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad, be'or panecha. Ki ve'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha. Torah chaim ve'ahavat chesed, u'tzedakah uvracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed ve'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha, v'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, bechol et uvchol sha'a bishlomecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha. We take a moment now to consider those in our families, our circle of friends, our congregation, our community at large, who are in need of healing and in need of prayers for healing. Their lives are incomplete in one way or another, and so they search for wholeness, of a sense of shleimut, of completeness, and they are interested in prayers on their behalf, which we offer for them. And so we think also of those who care for those in need of healing, wishing for them insight and skill and wisdom, and we think of those who care about those in need of healing, wishing for them endurance and strength and courage. We think especially this week of those from our congregational family: Bill Bly, Janet Breskman, Willa D'Souza, Irene Chaya Doniger, Barbara Foreman, Lisa Friedman, Marvin Fuchs, Ruth Kravitz, Howard Kravitz, Steve Matzner, Lois Miller, John Rose, Bill Schneider, Lois Snyder, Jackie Student, Velvel Ben Avraham, Pete Walsh. If you are thinking of someone who is in need of healing and in need of prayers for healing, and they would like for their name to be shared at this moment, please feel free to share it with us. For all the people whose names we've heard out loud, perhaps more names that may remain in our own hearts and minds, we share this prayer of healing inside either the front or back cover of your prayer book as a series of stickers. And this morning we'll do version number 4. For those of you who are following along at home, I'm not sure if the version is there in the file, in that folder, but regardless, feel free to just hear the words and appreciate the prayer. After our prayer for healing, we will continue with silent prayer. Version number 4. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak ve'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Mi sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, Hu yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. El Narefanala, El Narefanala, El Narefanala, El Narefanala, Mi sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, Hu yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Hu yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Hu yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Excuse me. So I lost a little sleep last night. I was stuck on reviewing a conversation that I had earlier in the evening, and I realized after Rhonda pointed out to me that when I was telling my story, it was great. I was really appreciative because I was sharing some customer service experiences, let's say, from my vacation, and all of which were very frustrating, none of which did anything to ruin the overall experience. But apparently, as I was telling them, in its own moment, it sounded like I was a little more angry than just frustrated. And so I started thinking about, what I could have done to have the experience run differently. So things that I could have made happen. So when there's no pen or paper in the room, I could have called down for pen or paper. I could have gone and made it happen. I could have knocked on the door next door, some of the people that I was traveling with. So there are things I could have done differently as well. And so while there were some things that were frustrating because they just went wrong, as I started every conversation with people who were doing their best to help me, I can only assume, I said, I realize there are real problems out there in the world, but within the context of all of the things that are collectively happening to kind of be frustrating, it's a little more frustrating than I was hoping for. So I started thinking about the responsibility I have for the actions that I take. And it reminded me of a Devar Torah that I had just kind of fell upon during the course of studying this week's Torah portion. And it was very interesting because it talked about exactly that, being responsible for our actions and what it means to be grown up and mature. And, growing up doesn't mean necessarily reaching any particular stage in life or owning something in particular, or the first time you buy a house or the first time you do this, if it happens at all. So it's not about the things that happen. It's about who we are as people and what characterizes someone as being grown up is to perhaps, and this is what is suggested in the Devar Torah, and I would personally, I think this is kind of as right on the mark as I think I could have wanted it to be. What characterizes someone as being grown up is when they're emotionally mature enough to kind of own their own actions and take responsibility for what they do, which consequently affects who they are. And we are the actions that we take, and we are the consequences of those actions. And that's just, who we are as we present ourselves into the world and to others. And so, so in the opening part of this week's portion, which is called Bo, literally it means come. It's a command form. Come here, Bo. But God says, Bo el paro, and it's translated as telling Moses, go to Pharaoh. And some people say that there's just, a matter of semantics. Moses is told to go to Pharaoh because he's not there, so he has to go to Pharaoh. The reason why, some commentators say the reason why that God uses the word come is to kind of imply that when you go to Pharaoh, I will be there. So really you're coming to me. And because I'm everywhere, and you know that. Pharaoh doesn't know that because he thinks he's a human God, but that's just his mishigas. This is something that you and I know, and so when I tell you to go to Pharaoh, I'm using the word come because I'm already going to be there, right? So wherever you go, I'm there, and you have to figure that out and realize that. But it also says that God says, I am going to harden Pharaoh's heart so that all of these things will happen and everyone will see that Pharaoh is just a human and that I'm the God who needs to be worshipped, and people have to acknowledge that. So people struggle with that concept throughout time, that, God right in the beginning says, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. Well, why go through the whole thing? So clearly, according to the pshat, the simple text that's written there, it's God taking responsibility for what happens next, all the pain, all the suffering, all of the plagues, all the things. God says it right from the start. I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart, and all these things are going to happen. And so God's outwardly taking responsibility for everything that happens during the course of the portion and the plagues and all that. Well, an interesting take that I saw in this particular Devar Torah was that if we consider ourselves as human beings with free will, and we have the ability, opportunity, obligation to act as we feel appropriate, and then to take ownership of those actions. And if that's really true, then when God says, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart, what God's really saying is, I'm going to allow Pharaoh to make the choices that Pharaoh would otherwise make. And Pharaoh is in a position of thinking of himself as this human God, as it were. And so that's just his nature. That's his character. So God isn't necessarily saying, I'm going to make Pharaoh do certain things, but I'm going to allow Pharaoh the opportunity through his free will to do what he's going to do, and you'll see for yourself, because you need to see this and everyone else needs to see this, that it's Pharaoh who is doing this to himself. I'm not physically directly hardening Pharaoh's heart. I'm putting Pharaoh in the same position as any of you as a human being to be making decisions and taking actions, and it's because of the nature of who Pharaoh was that he made choices that affected others. And so it looked as if God was doing it, but God wasn't doing it. God wasn't hardening Pharaoh's heart. God was putting Pharaoh in a position of having to take ownership of his actions. And so in the end, we come to realize that Pharaoh wasn't acting in the best interest of his people all the time, and he wasn't acting in the best interests of society in general. He was really looking out for himself. He was not concerned with something greater than himself and greater than the people that look to him for all sorts of resources. And so we kind of acknowledge our individual responsibility, obligation, opportunity to make decisions, take actions, and then to own the decisions we make and to own the actions we take, and to realize that our actions have consequences, even when we don't quite realize that that's the case. So it's a thought to put out there. So anyway, something to consider. So at this point, one action we're going to take. Yeah, unless you want me to go get mine. Okay, so one action we're about to take is to allow everyone to hear all the incredible announcements about amazing things going on in our community. Mark Hager is now calling Steve Kantrowitz, president of our congregation, who's going to share with us all this great, exciting news.
This is Mark.
Make sure it was Shiva. How you doing?
Okay, I'm not sure what...
Probably has to go where the earpiece, the microphone has to go where the ear is.
Yeah, no, right now with my phone.
Maybe put it on speaker. Maybe put it on speaker.
I have it on speaker.
Oh, it's
That's
on.
the thing that surprises me. Yeah, the volume is high.
Is the microphone on?
Microphone is on. But it's not a lot of volume coming out of my...
So Steve,
well, try it anyway,
say hi
Steve.
one more time.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Good. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This week at TBA, this evening at 7 p.m., real nights, in person only. Tomorrow, Sunday, January 9th, 9 a.m. religious school, noon confirmation class. Tuesday, January 11th, 7 p.m. sisterhood Zoom meeting. The happiness prayer continues. And please RSVP to sisterhood via email sisterhood@brithachim.org. Wednesday, January 12th, 7:30 a.m. morning minyan. Thursday, January 13th, noon, midweek Torah study, and 7 p.m. Board of Trustees meeting. Save the date, Saturday, January 15th, 10:30 a.m. Shabbat morning service, followed by Tu B'Shuv Seder by Lori and Harry Reichner. Tuesday, January 18th, 7 p.m. Hebrew calligraphy in-person class taught by Harry Reichner, a member of TBA and an experienced calligrapher. RSVP to adulted@brithachim.org. Space is limited, so please respond soon. Saturday, January 22nd, 7 p.m. to 9:15. Kala, Night of Jewish Learning. Sunday, January 30th, noon, Adult Ed Challah Baking. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And excuse me, just to elaborate on two things that Steve mentioned. One is, excuse me, the Night of Jewish Learning, the Kala. It's a collaboration, or as Elena Werner said, a collaboration of congregations from Chester County. A whole bunch of leaders of the congregations will be teaching. I'll be teaching, and it'll be there'll be a great evening. There'll be a play presented by Theater Ariel, and then there'll be a little break, and then there'll be teaching sessions, and it'll be a great experience for everyone. We used to do it in person, and now we're kind of doing it online, and hopefully we'll be back in person fully at some point, but certainly worth participating if you have any interest in learning stuff. And then the other thing I wanted to say, that anyone who's ever been to a Tu B'Shvat Seder ever, or specifically here, Harry and Lori do a great job of leading us in kind of acknowledging the new year of the trees, and so it's really a wonderful experience to appreciate, especially in the middle of this weather, the idea of planting and growing things, because as many of you know, our holidays are based on the agriculture of the land of Israel. So that's why even in this weather, we observe Tu B'Shvat by recognizing the need to plant and grow, and our gratitude for trees and growing things and all the things that they produce that help us to live our lives as fully as possible. So with that, we're going to continue on page 148, with Aleinu, in body, mind, or spirit. Please rise as you are able. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamelachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim veyosed haaretz umoshav yekaro bashamayim mima'al ushchinat uzo begov meromim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes zulato kakatuv b'torato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha Ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad ushmo echad. You may be seated. Our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, let us meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Life is finite. Like a candle, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty, then it fades. Its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our lives are full, but as night follows day, the candle of our life burns down and gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. However brief may be our time on earth, O God, you endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. We now recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and as we remember those who died at this season in years past, we take them into our hearts with our own. Although not yet laid to rest, we remember Steve Cohen, late husband of Rhonda Cohen and father of Corey Cohen. Funeral will be tomorrow. There will be opportunities to visit and in person and online, and minyanim during the course of the week as well. So please, if you're not receiving our weekly emails, or if you haven't received this, please reach out to the temple office so we can make sure that you do receive our messages. This is the period of Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning for Jean D'Souza, late wife of Norm D'Souza, mother of Mark D'Souza, grandmother of Eric and Theo. And also this is the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Milton Schwartz, who was the father of Randy Schwartz. And also this is the period of Shloshim for a very dear friend of Bill Schneider. And the following yahrzeits will be observed at some point during the coming week. This Shabbat, we remember Sam Berkowitz, father of Adele Elkins, Gloria S. Greenberg, mother of Willa D'Souza, Alexander Needle, father of Saul Needle, Gertrude Arnold, grandmother of Alex Toll, Ellen Matzner, late wife of Steve Matzner, mother of Jen Sherwood, grandmother of Nicole Sherwood, Zoya Berda, mother of Stephen Berda, Sarah Berkowitz, grandmother of Bradley Berkowitz, Leon Kodus, father of Susan Yaron, Ann Grossman, mother of Rebecca Bartolo, Billy Berkowitz, brother of Adele Elkins, Claire Famous, mother of Cindy Bernstein, Florence Neft, mother of Michael Neft, Ann P. Bedingfield, aunt of Peter Walsh, Ray Lebove, aunt of Sharon Weinberg. If you are mourning the loss of someone, remembering someone, observing a period of mourning, and would like to share that name with us, please do so. In this moment of memory, our griefs and our sympathies are mingled. Loving God, we praise your name by affirming the lives that we must continue to live, enriched by the memories and blessings left to us by those who have died. As we turn now as one supportive community to page 154, and in body, mind, or spirit, we rise as we are able for Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, this prayer of life. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam u'le'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'it pa'ar, v'it romam, v'it naseh, v'it hadar, v'it aleh, v'it halal, shemed kudasha barichu, ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma, ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, ve'chaim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens cause peace to reign among us, all Israel, and all who dwell on earth. And may the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved, as together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Our closing song can be found on page 161, Psalm 121, page 161. Esa enai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz. Esa enai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz. And the morning Kiddush can be found on page 167. 167, I'll invite Mark and Rhonda to share the honor of Kiddush and Motzi. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. say it?
Al-Kain Barach Adonai V'yichad Shehu.
Therefore,
The Eternal One
bless the seventh day,
and called it holy.
holy. There you go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei peri hagafen.
L'chaim.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread.
Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are here.
Shabbat
All of you who are
Shalom.
here. Thank you so much for sharing Shabbat this morning. Thank you to Steve Kantrowitz for sharing with us all of the announcements of incredible things for people to participate in during the next coming days and weeks. And so with that, wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to seeing everybody here at some point. Please come join us when you're able. Shabbat Shalom.